Hello, BookTube. Have yet more books to show you. Believe it or not, the procession is just endless. It happened again. I once again had access to a car and a driver who had no shirt on. So I once again went to field and found another pile of great stuff that I want to show you. I I tell myself that all these things are keepers. Who knows if you can tell me in 2 years that I might be having a video in which I say I wish I could find them all. The first one is an absolutely lovely illustrated edition of Henry James, of all people. Not one of my all-time favorite authors, but this is, I don't know if you can make this out in the lighting. This is English Hours. He did a whole bunch for decades. He did a whole bunch of quick, occasional pieces about various places in England, various aspects of English society at the beginning of the 20th century, the very beginning of the 20th century, and they were collected. I don't remember the exact date. They were collected in 1905, with beautiful black and white line illustrations by Joseph Pennell, and this volume reproduces all of those Pennell illustrations, but it also it fills out with beautiful color work everywhere. Not just, famous reproductions of famous paintings, but also photographs and Victorian and Edwardian full color paintings that aren't famous anymore. Just a lovely thing. I have a paperback of English Hours that has no illustrations at all, so I was very happy to get this. Same thing as before, where I look for a particular production, where it's not just a reproduction of a book, but something lavish that I will want to experience, not just read. And then the next book is also very English. It's the kind of thing I might cycle through, might just read it, absorb it, love it, and then get rid of it and find an equivalent later on. It's a full color paperback of English country churches, and it features a lot of the really tiny ones with very lovely illustrations, very lovely photographs. So you get the photograph, and then you get a description of the church's history, and how many dozen little old ladies go to it and whatnot. I haven't dipped into the history or the prose or anything, but I love books like this. Absolutely do. I visited. I will probably have visited almost every place that's in the book. We'll see. We'll see. The next one more illustrated book, an absolute classic from the late 1990s, 1996, I think. It's a Magical World by Bill Watterson. This is Calvin and Hobbes, and it isn't just any Calvin and Hobbes. It's great Calvin and Hobbes. Those of you who don't know really need to fix that, but it's the story of a little boy and his stuffed tiger who have adventures together, and they're all wonderful. The volumes reproduce the 3-panel daily strips, and then the full color Sunday strip. And I found one I came across where Calvin's mother sees that his room is a mess and says, "I want you to pick up your room today, okay?" And Calvin says, "Do I get paid?" And she says, "No." And he says, "If I don't get paid, how do I know it's important?" And she looks at him and says, "You can trust a mother on that." But of course, the real gut punch of this particular Calvin and Hobbes volume is the ending, which a lot of us saw coming. It had been in the news. Calvin and Hobbes are tobogganing after a fresh snowfall, and Calvin says, I don't know if you can see this in this lighting, he says, "It's a magical world, Hobbes, old buddy. Let's go exploring." With the whole 2/3 of this bottom panel is just white, with the one swoosh of their path in the snow as they sled off forever. That was the last Calvin and Hobbes cartoon, and it was heartbreaking for those of us who loved the strip because it was over, and heartbreaking and yet bittersweet because it ends in such a perfect way. So when I found it, I don't think that I actually have this volume. So when I found it, all of these things were basically free. I had to get it. Then some big fat hardcovers. Now that we've done with the picture books. The first one is this huge thing. It's A World Transformed by President George H.W. Bush and Brent Scowcroft, the ultimate insider politician for decades in Washington. The guy, the quiet-voiced guy in the back of the room, who has a smaller briefing notebook than anybody else because he has it all at his fingertips, but he's not going to assert himself. He's just the guy you want if something goes wrong on your watch, or if you need careful instruction about something complex. And the whole point of this book, it's not actually a memoir, a Bush memoir. He wrote a book of his own, and of course he famously wrote one on The Simpsons. The great episode where he goes to Springfield to write his memoirs and finishes it up, having accomplished everything I set out to do in one term, I saw no need for a second. The end. Mikhail Gorbachev comes to Springfield and finds President Bush fist fighting with Homer Simpson. I come to you with a gift for warming of house. I find you wrestling with local yokel. This is a book they wrote together with the help of a ghostwriter. They don't put him on the cover, and they really should have, because he did a huge amount of work about Bush's brief tenure in office. And they make a very good point, which is how much happened in that time. The Soviet Union, China, the economy, lots and lots of things came to a boil and broke during Bush's tenure as president. And the point that the book doesn't make, but believe me, I read it when it came out, and I'm looking forward to reading it again very much. Let's put it that way. I don't think I gave it a fair shot for for its importance as a book when I first read it. I can't wait to read it again. And the upshot that you come away with, neither man wants to make this point for different reasons, is that Bush's presidency and also the world itself would have been a whole lot worse off if it had been some other guy than Brent Scowcroft, who'd been right there when all this stuff started coming down the pike. So I was very happy to find this. I'm happy. I will eagerly reread it. Then the next one is a double, so I will probably be mailing it out to one of you. I have the paperback, and it's the same edition. I just recently read the latest entry in the Yale University Press's Jewish Lives series. And they're short hardcovers of various prominent Jewish people, and one of the latest ones is a biography of Warner Brothers by David Thompson, and it's fantastic. Oh my God, what a book! He's fantastic just in general. And when I was reading it, I kept remembering that he's written a great book. He wrote a necessary thing to have on your library shelf, and it's the Biographical Dictionary of Film. It's a gigantic thing, but it's the work of one man, and it runs through every movie, every star, every director, and you get the encyclopedia stuff at the beginning. You get the dates and whatnot, and then at the end of every entry, you get a blast of Thompson. You get a blast of opinion. So this is I've actually had this happen, where this book open on a coffee table at a party with movie people will spark endless discussions and disagreements, both with each other and with him. Just fantastic. So when I saw this gigantic thing for nothing, I had to grab it, even though I already have a copy. And then two biographies of very different men. They only had one thing in common. I'll leave you to figure out what it is. First one is The Curious Life of Robert Hooke by Lisa Jardine, with this great cover design. It doesn't have a dust jacket. It has a banner across the front, so that when the artwork is impressed onto the book cover itself, and when you put it there, you have Hooke's eye. And he was a polymath in Restoration London. He actually helped Christopher Wren and the Commission to replan and rebuild London after the Great Fire, and he was a deeply unpleasant man. he was a deeply unpleasant man, and in a lot of different ways too. It wasn't just that he got familiar with his own niece. It was also that nobody liked him, and they were justified in not liking him. But he was a interesting figure too, and never more so than in Lisa Jardine's book. This is one of those biographies that really really sheds light on the stuff that you knew about the subject, but you'd never really connected why any of it was really important. I read it when it first came out. This was from I think the late 90s. No, 2004. I read it then, and just liked it because I like everything she writes, but I got rid of it. I'm looking forward to reading it again, because I remember, when you see a book like that and you remember reading it, you're teased into memory thinking, oh, there was more going on there, I think, than I got the first time. You were happy for the second chance. And then the last book, the last one for this little haul, is also a biography. It's Augustus St. Gaudens. It's called Uncommon Clay. It's a biography of the person who, in my opinion, is the greatest sculptor of modern times. Those of you who like modernist crapola will probably disagree with that, but I'm sure that if you live in New York, or if you live anywhere in the eastern corridor of the United States, you will have seen some of his work. And of course, here in Boston, he's famous for the Shaw Memorial at the top of Boston Common, the memorial to Robert Gould Shaw and the regiment that he led in the Civil War. But he led a fascinating life, absolutely fascinating. And this book, I read it when it first came out and really liked it. It's one of two great St. Gaudens biographies, but I think this one might be my favorite, and I'm looking forward to rereading it, especially since, if I remember correctly, this is the biography that does the better job of the two at understanding the artwork, at talking about the artwork. It's always the problem that you face with a scientist or a writer or an artist is, the biographer has to understand the facts and the currents of their life, but it'd also be great if the biographer understood their art, or at least somewhat understood their art, and this author does. And that is it. It's yet another on-the-road book haul. So we have Uncommon Clay, we have The Curious Life of Robert Hooke, we have A World Transformed by President Bush and his right-hand man, we have the new biographical dictionary of film by the great David Thompson, we have It's a Magical World, oh god, we've run out of room, we have It's a Magical World, the most bittersweet of all the Calvin and Hobbes volumes, and then we have these two British volumes, English Country Churches and English Hours by Henry James, full of illustrations, and that's it. I don't think there's going to be a car much longer, so I don't think there's going to be another one of these. We'll probably get back to just boring old mail hauls, but I'll see you then. Thank you, Book 2.